Welcome back, brothers and sisters. My name is Brayden. This beautiful gentleman right over here, his name is Tim, and this is The Second Legacy, and thank you so much for stopping by. Well, my brothers and sisters, today on Second Legacy, Tim and I are going to break down a new proposed bill from the Senate of Minnesota. And don't worry, it's not extremely tyrannical gun control. Yes, it is, but we're going to break it down right now and expose the silly for exactly what it is, silly. Now, before we get into this, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. You like the video. You make sure you turn the notification bell on. We need as many people as we can to get in here to help the channel grow, and we'd love to have you along for the ride. But with that, Tim, we're about to dive into this. Before I get you all amped with the crazy, how you doing today, man?
Terrible. Don't drink this stuff.
Wow, what is it? What is that? Kombucha?
Yeah.
Well, you gone hippie on me?
Well, it sounded good. I mean, who doesn't like pineapple and peach? I got it, and it's like vinegar and battery acid. But anyway, aside from that, doing great, man.
But other than your hippie drink choices,
they lured me in with
I'm sure.
two of my favorite fruits, and then they put it in carbonated battery acid. Anyway.
Yeah, that's nice. Anyway, well, at least you got the probiotics. But, let's hit this, Tim, because we've got some crazy stuff to break down for the people at home. So this is SF 1723. It's not important that you actually see the graphic because we're about to break down the crazy. But, Tim, now what's the over-under here? That what we're about to show the people is all the regular rigmarole of the gun control groups all wrapped up in another bill at another state level. What do you think the over-under is?
Well, I mean, look, taking a look at this thing, it definitely is like this huge bill that has taken literally every bad gun control idea that I've seen in recent times and rolled it into one bill. And it's just, it's rather overwhelming. Now, this was sent to me by one of my Patreons for the Military Arms channel. And he's like, awesome. Check this out. And I saw it. And I was just dumbfounded. I mean, what do you say to this? It's just crazy.
No, that's exactly right. And this was posted on the 11th. So this is not something recycled. This is a brand new thing. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to read a few of the introduction pieces in the Article 1 of this. And I'm just going to show you how crazy this goes, because there is literally, like Tim said, every single piece of gun control lunacy is wrapped up in this thing, which is something that we've seen a lot in state legislatures over the past year to year and a half, where they just take all the gun control points from prior federal bills, Giffords.org, Every Town for Gun Safety, and they throw it into this one amalgamation of just tyranny. But let me just start this right, Tim. Let me get my best narration voice on so we really bring this home. Mr. Producer, could you hit number 2 for me? A bill for an act relating to public safety, modifying concealed carry of firearms, banning possession of large capacity ammunition magazines, ghost guns, and other weapons, prohibiting open carry of firearms, and providing for reasonable regulation of firearms. Well, Tim, it's reasonable. So this can't be bad because it's clearly stated in the description it's reasonable.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. We're going to chop your hands off and boil you in oil as a reasonable precaution to keep you from doing anything you shouldn't be doing, right? Totally reasonable.
Because it's common sense, after all, Tim. Because common sense, gun safety is what we're chasing.
Got to get these weapons of war off the street.
All of them.
Can't have
every one of them.
Knives and sticks and things like that. Anything that's ever been used in war, we got to get them off our streets.
That's true. Because it's just common sense.
It's just pure common sense,
that was a good sarcasm drop. It really primed the audience just to prepare for this right here. Article 1, Mr. Producer, could you get to number 3 for me? The legislative intent and purpose: to protect the life and liberty of Minnesotans from gun violence by people who would deny them those rights. It is necessary to implement a rational regulatory system for firearms similar to Minnesota's long-standing system for licensing drivers and registering motor vehicles. Motor vehicles have lawful purposes, but they can be deadly. Likewise for firearms. Motor vehicle ownership and use has been responsibly regulated, resulting in reductions in motor vehicle fatalities. A similar system of rational and responsible regulation of firearms would result in reductions in firearm-related fatalities as well. Tim, that was so positive. That was
seems
so
reasonable to me.
beautiful.
And you know what's scary is in that paragraph, the very beginning of that paragraph, they almost got it right. They start off with the whole gun violence nonsense, which again, there's no such thing as gun violence. That's just a phrase used to scare people. And then they go on to say, we're going to take away your guns so that people can't use them to hurt you. So they got close and realizing it's the people doing it, not the gun, but then they come right back around to the gun. They got so close, man. They almost had it figured out.
They were right over the target. But then they took a hard left, hard lurch right back into the main talking points right now. Motor vehicles, Tim.
No, that's
because
the other great
after
one.
all,
yeah.
Similar regulations have been applied to motor vehicles, and there's been such forward momentum in motion. Even though, I mean, of course, those are not Second Amendment protected items in the Constitution of the United States. But who's to say, Tim? I mean, we've seen it before.
You know, we regulate motor vehicles, with licensing schemes, tax schemes, denying people access to vehicles for any number of reasons. And it seems only reasonable to take that same recipe and apply that to the First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Second Amendment. Let's just apply it to all of our rights, right? You don't really need to say what's on your mind in public. You need to get a license first. And then, we'll determine whether or not through the process if you're worthy of said license. And then once you do get the license, we're just going to, just a small fee, totally reasonable, just a small fee of, let's say $10,000 a year, just so you can say what's on your mind. I mean, it's worked so well for cars. Come on, it's all reasonable.
100%, because it's reasonable, and there's obviously complete analogs to the gun industry. The motor vehicle industry. If only we could make the gun industry in the same comfortable and safe and common sense safety. The only problem is seatbelts don't fit on firearms, Tim.
No, but you know where they're going to go with this. They're going to go into forcing people into smart guns and stuff like that. Think about all the bills that were out there in various states that said the minute a smart gun is commercially viable, then we're going to pass this law, automatically triggers, and everybody has to own a smart gun.
Correct.
That's where they're going to try to use this lead in, I think. Right?
That was New Jersey, right? I think
it was.
New Jersey?
Yeah, it was one of the East Coast states. I think it might have been Jersey. Yeah. So
yeah, it's just crazy.
It is, and it's they're comparing apples to oranges here. Our rights aren't there for the government to decide who gets to exercise them. That's not how this is supposed to work. The rights enshrined in the Constitution and Bill of Rights are hands off. Leave them alone. These are the rights of the people, not the state. It's not a collective right. These are individual rights, and this has been upheld both by Congress and the Supreme Court. So it needs to stop, but they won't. And this law, there's so many facets of it that fly in the face of Bruin and other decisions. It's just they keep doing this. And, I saw the worst press secretary in history, KJP, just talking about how Biden's going out to preach, more gun control. And it's like you guys just passed your landmark 30-year build-up legislation that was bipartisan. It was going to save the world. And what did it actually do? You got the NICS system. What has it done? Oh, we're going to fix NICS. We're going to fix all these laws. We passed all these bans and they're not working, so we're just going to keep fixing them by making them more restrictive. And therein lies the rub. This is all incrementalism to get us to the point where they really want us to be, which they don't want to say out loud, which is a ban.
I mean, Tim, that was very well said. To be honest. In fact, I think we can put a pin in that one because we've got another thing. You mentioned the Supreme Court because this is interesting. I want to get your take on this because the audience, I think, is going to really dive into this one. Mr. Producer, could you hit number 4 for me? The United States Supreme Court has held that the Second Amendment guarantees an individual right to bear arms in self-defense. However, the court acknowledged that reasonable restrictions may be placed on firearms, some of which have long been effectively banned from private ownership. This legislation is consistent with the court's holdings and strikes a proper balance between an individual's right to bear arms and the compelling interest of the state, both in ensuring that dangerous persons do not get access to firearms and protecting its citizens from gun violence. Now, if I may, Tim, can I jump on one thing right there which stands out and kind of screams to me first?
Yeah.
The Bruin decision. Because what they just described in the second half of that paragraph is what's called interest balancing. So in a very fine little nutshell, Interest balancing means the court gets to decide, does the public safety demand or need for public safety outweigh the individual rights to the Second Amendment? That's the whole argument in a nutshell. Can the state go, we're more important, the rights of everyone are more important than your rights, so we're going to side with them? This is how they did AR bans. This is how they did mag bans. This is how they did everything for the past 15 years. The Bruin decision, Tim, completely wiped this off the face of the earth. The new standard is history, text, and tradition. So why is Minnesota putting this in here in a bill that they're proposing in their Senate when it is blatantly old standard?
Well,
my personal bet,
they're ignoring. Go ahead.
Yeah, they're either ignoring it or it's old text.
Yeah, well, yeah, they may have. Well, I got a feeling that they were quite aware of Bruin when they did this, but they're citing Heller, right? And that was,
yes.
And when the Heller decision came out, and I read the opinion that, reasonable restrictions can apply to rights. Mm-hmm. They really kind of, we had such a great decision. Then you get to that paragraph, you're like, wah, wah. Like, really? Really? Yeah. So what does that do? It's a nebulous statement. It doesn't say what's reasonable or what's unreasonable. It just says, rights are subject to reasonable restrictions, basically guaranteeing their own jobs in the future because they don't want to give a definitive decision. They're just going to keep hearing more and more court cases for the next 200 years. So we can kind of maybe some way at some point get enough court cases heard that we can figure out what they deem to be reasonable before the makeup of the court changes again. And then what's reasonable changes again. It just...
Right. It's almost like it's a never-ending system.
Yeah. It's almost like by design. It's so annoying. That was the worst part of the Heller decision. But anyway, that's what they're citing. They're leaning on Heller and ignoring Bruin. But...
Right. And Bruin's the one that came after it.
Yeah. And this most definitely, should it pass, will most definitely be challenged in the Supreme Court, and most definitely by this makeup of the court will strike it down. And all the states that are staunchly anti-gun are doing this. We've talked about this before, right? Mm-hmm. All these states are like, well, we can't get anything done at the federal level, so let's just start passing stupid laws at the state level and just flood the court system with them. I think that's the strategy.
That's exactly what it is. No, you are directly over the target. If you guys are watching this, leave comments down there in the field and let us know what you think. But when you see something as clean and clear, when you are looking at the Heller decision back right behind the Bruin decision, and you still see states doing this, they know they're going to lose. They know it's unconstitutional. So why do they keep doing it? That why is a very important question. It points to the idea that they have to virtue signal. They have to keep passing these bills for the appearance of doing something. We have to do something, because if we did nothing, it would be terrible. So we got to do something, even though something will do nothing, but at least we did something. Right, Tim?
Yeah. Boy, that sounds like a word salad from our vice president. All you need to do is throw up a Venn diagram and, it'd be complete.
And make new civil rights on ad hoc in speeches.
Yeah.
Other than that. But why don't let me just bring this together for everybody watching, because so far we've only covered the introduction. That was that juicy. Let me show you a few of the little goodies they're putting in here. Mr. Producer, we're just going to start at 6 and I'll just go through about 10. All right. So the first one, we've got negligent storage of firearms. That's a misdemeanor if you don't store it right. That's something that's happening Michigan, north in the mid-north area of the United States. That's a cute one. Let's go to number 7. Ownership and possession of firearms, license required. Tim, that sounds like an FOID, doesn't it?
It does. A lot of states have done that. Even my home state of Indiana had that for a long time.
Man, you are just as guilty as the rest of them. Anyway, let's keep going.
I didn't do it.
Mr. Producer. It has been undone. Number 8, please. Purchase or transfer of more than one firearm per 30 days is prohibited. It's a gross misdemeanor, Tim, if you transfer more than one in a 30-day period. So you have a max of 12 months, and you better not miss that first of each month, because if you do, that throws off your whole rest of the month. Yeah. You're missing days.
More than one gun a month, that's pretty gross.
Yep, that's pretty gross. And number 9, we've got large capacity magazines, 50 caliber or larger firearms, semi-automatic military style assault weapons, and ghost guns are prohibited. Did we miss anything, Tim?
Those are pretty much the hot button ones. Military style.
Yeah, assault weapons. They're
getting spicy, dude.
Yeah, you got to throw all of the buzzwords on there. It's like if you throw a few more of those in there, I mean, man.
It's not
you're gonna have a real long sentence.
It's not technically a legal statement, though, because it's not full semi-automatic military style assault weapons.
It's true. That's true. They forgot the full.
They forgot the full.
And to wrap this up, this is one of my favorites. Could you hit number 10, Mr. Producer? Firearm registration required. Registration required by January 1, 2024. Every person who owns a firearm must register the firearm with the Commissioner of Public Safety. Oh, that's not a scary title.
Is that right next to the Ministry of Truth?
Yes, and yes, it's right there. It's right there. No, it's actually on the same substreet. They share a basement. So here's the things that they must have in writing, and they must contain the name and address of the owner, the number of the license authorizing the owner to own or possess a firearm, the serial number of the firearm being registered. Tim, how scary is that? In all seriousness,
that is horrible. Now I know we have a federal law stopping such things by the federal government, but I'm not sure about state laws. I mean, this will present an interesting challenge in the courts because. You know, if the federal government's not allowed to keep a registry of gun owners, then why would we allow state governments to do it?
Correct. Well, it's the exact same thought process along the lines of the PLCAA, the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act.
Yeah.
Why would you not be able to sue a manufacturer of firearms in federal, but you can do it in state level, as what a lot of states are doing? Like these conflicts that they're creating. In my own personal opinion, down the road, I think these things are just something to do now, but down the road, it's going to gut the gun control movement because you cannot have state laws that are violating federal law. I mean, you can't do that. The supremacy clause alone prevents that from being an option.
And generally speaking, the Supreme Court doesn't like that either. So
yeah, no, they don't like that at all. But I mean, like when you look at all the things that we just covered, this is what they're actually positioning as, again, going back to that first statement, reasonable and responsible and common sense measures for the right of Minnesotans. You know, there's nothing reasonable or common sense about this.
No, and again, it's just an amalgamation of all these different laws that they've seen over the years, all rolled into one, just this big Hail Mary they hope that they can get passed. And then I guess they're just going to wait and see what the Supreme Court does, you know. But
it's just
so mind-boggling to me. And what's really eerie about this is we've only scratched the surface of this bill. I mean, it would take us hours to go through everything in this bill. That should give you an idea of just how awful this bill is. I mean, it's like they've taken every horrible bill they could ever think of and they rolled them into one, and it's just unbelievable. And if this thing passes. Well, that's a really sad testament to the state of things in the state. It really will be.
Sad day. Okay, so Tim, I just had a brilliant idea. Brilliant. I needed a light bulb. If I had a light bulb, it would pop up. What if every single gun-friendly and gun rights-friendly state all of a sudden started passing NFA items were no longer illegal in that state boundary? What do you think would happen?
See, states have done that, and they found themselves in court.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Isn't that weird how it
never cuts both ways?
It's odd. It's odd how fast that occurs. Maybe they didn't do it reasonably enough.
Yeah. You know, going back to the whole one gun a month thing, that is so annoying to me. Now, I mean, it would definitely help me with my finances.
That's what's annoying.
Okay.
That's what's annoying. All the things I just read. That's what gets you. Okay.
But who buys one gun a month? Just one gun a month? Nobody. I buy one gun a day. Ideally. No, but seriously, it's like, I'm goofing around, but you know, what's really crazy about that, could you imagine if they said, you have a right to freedom of speech, but you can only make one blog post a month.
One tweet a day.
Yeah, one tweet a day, and the Ministry of Truth will judge whether or not it's a factual statement or not. But, you know, if you go over that, misdemeanor for you. Gross misdemeanor for you. And if you continue, we're going to give you a gross felony. And then if it continues past that, we're just going to get gross. My goodness, this is ridiculous.
It's that's the best way to say it. I think we can wrap on that.
Yeah, I think so. Let's just kind of leave it there on a high note. And this is just gross all the way around. All right, folks, if you'd like to be part of our call-in show, there's a link in the video description below. Follow that link, answer some questions, and we'll get you on the show. You can ask a question, make a statement, and we'll have a great conversation around whatever two-way issue you would like to talk about. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you guys soon.